The Straw Hats went from a crew of 11 to a grand fleet of over 5,600, who are now the strongest military force in the entire world. Members of the Straw Hat fleet would be free to live their lives and sail the seas however they saw fit. Luffy would be able to call on them for help when he needed it. However, while other Yonko like Whitebeard or Big Mom might have commanders, Luffy's Grand Fleet is entirely made up of representatives. This is extremely important. Why? Well, Luffy doesn't command anyone to do anything. These people are here because they want to be. That's why Mihawk back in Marineford stated how dangerous Luffy actually was. Normally, each group has one representative that speaks for them. It's more so a partnership and an alliance than a hierarchy like the other Yonko crews, even if everyone does technically see Luffy as their leader. Aside from the Straw Hats themselves, there are 7 representatives in the fleet, each with their own crew and ships. The first among them is Cavendish and the Beautiful Pirates. While we know 3 members of this crew, being Cavendish himself, Suleiman, and Furrow the Horse, the crew consists of a total of 74 members who followed their captain after being exiled from the bourgeoisie kingdom. Okay, I'm gonna establish this right now, guys. I'm gonna butcher so many names in this video, so apologies in advance. But going back to these guys, the name bourgeoisie is actually extremely fitting, as each crewmate looks like they came right out of the European aristocracy. Meanwhile, their ship, the Sleeping Forest White Steed, looks like it would belong to some spoiled princess. Cause, you know, they appreciate the fine things in life. Together, the crew holds a bounty of over $500 million, with 330,000 of that belonging to Cavendish himself, who was dubbed a super rookie the year prior to the worst generation's rise to fame. And while that might make you think the rest of the crew is full of weaklings, you gotta remember that they survived the New World for 3 full years without ever aligning with another Yonko crew. If you don't think that's impressive, maybe you should ask Captain Mid about that. I mean, his arm would love to tell you that story. The second representative is obviously my goat, Bart, who leads the Barto Club, of which we know 2 of its 56 members, being Bart himself and Gambia. This group was originally just a bunch of thugs who grew up in small towns, but Bart became inspired by Luffy to become a pirate. And so he led all of his friends to the seas, where they could specialize in bringing the ruckus anywhere that going Luffy senpai brings them. Basically, these guys just went around causing war crimes while sucking Luffy off, like they were glazing on another level. Like the Straw Hats, the Barto Club managed to reach the New World from the East Blue, earning a 267 million bounty as a group, 200 million of that said bounty belonging to their captain. Remember, Bart is known as the freaking cannibal, and while that's just because he tends to mock a lot of people, he's no pushover. His devil fruit is actually insane, as the Bari Bari no Mi allows him to create barriers by crossing his fingers, which, mind you, are seemingly indestructible. Attacks from Bellamy, Delinger, Gladius, and Hakuba all had 0 effect. Even Elisabello II's King Punch, which can demolish an entire fortress, couldn't get past it. At the same time, they're a bunch of goofballs, as they don't have a real navigator and instead call Gambia's grandmother for advice on what to do next. And if that isn't enough, the entire crew is prone to getting seasick, which is not exactly the best fit for pirates. I mean, there's no wonder these guys got one shot by Shanks. Our third representative is Sai, who brings with him the second largest group in the alliance, with 1,000 members of the Hapu Navy. Prior to competing for the Maramara no Mi in Kurita Coliseum, Sai was the 13th leader of the Hapu Navy, led by the Qingzhou family of Kono country. This group has a particularly impressive history, being rivals with Garp, collecting a massive hoard of treasure, and Sai himself was even able to beat Lao Ji in combat. On top of that, the Hapu army has a signature technique called the 8 Impact Fists, which use vibrations in combination with their attacks to break through armor and shields. In many ways, it's similar to the type of hockey that Luffy learned in Wano, which allowed him to finally damage Kaido. At this time, we know of 3 standing members of the Hapu Navy: Sai, Boo, and their newly added Baby 5, who was previously an officer of the Doflamingo family. Altogether, the Hapu Navy's bounty is at least 752 million, and Sai only makes up 210 of that. So there's considerable amounts of power here spread throughout the crew. This gives the fleets, and therefore Luffy, a literal standing army which can be used to challenge their enemies. From one of the biggest groups of the fleet to the smallest, next is the Idio pirates under, well, Idio. There are only 4 members of this crew, each of which were contestants at the Kurita Coliseum, these being Idio, Blue Gilly, Abdallah, and Jeet. Idio is a member of the Long Arm tribe, being able to produce punches that explode with enough power to send Harujin flying. Blue Gilly, on the other, well, Foot is a long-leg tribe member who fights with Zhao Kundo. His kicks are like steel whips and were able to knock out Dogma in one hit. Abdallah is a former bounty hunter who works with his partner Jeet. These two fight in tandem and always take advantage of one being attacked while the other retaliates from behind. These four could act as potential spear points in combat. Along with Sai, each could lead their own battalion and act as the vanguard leading troops against the enemy. These four were given a ship by Orlumbus and eventually came across a battle being waged between the long arm and long leg tribes. This could have been kind of awkward since half their crew fits on these different sides of the conflict, but rather than picking sides, the Idio pirates just took down both crews at the same time instead. Okay, so I know I said these guys were the smallest crew in the Grand Fleet, and that's technically true, but now I want to talk about the literal, actual, physically smallest, being none other than Leo and the Chantata pirates who sail on the Usolint. This group of 200 dwarves has the incredibly high bounty of 0. Zip, zilch, nada, nothing. For all the mischief these guys can create and any power they might actually have at their disposal, it's hard to take them seriously when they're 9 inches tall. I mean, even the ship they sail on is only the size of an average person. In general, the dwarves are extremely agile, can make any plants grow, and are surprisingly strong and durable for their size. Essentially, they offer a whole 200-person group of allies who are incredibly hard to detect, which is important because it makes them really good for potential espionage missions they have in the future, especially during the final war with the world government. Now, from the smallest to the biggest, we have Harujin's new giant warrior pirates on the Nogflar. Nogflar? Noglafar? I don't know, it sounds Norse, so Nogflar. Like the name suggests, this crew is composed exclusively of giants. And even though there are only 5 of them, that does count for a lot when you consider they range from 55 to 72 feet tall. The crew consists of Harujin the captain, Stanson the shipwright, Rode the navigator, Goldberg the cook, and Jerd the doctor. When they worked for Buggy's delivery, they were considered S-class mercenaries and were a massive loss for the organization when they resigned. These will undoubtedly be a force which supports the entire fleet, towering above the others and standing as pillars of strength for their allies. Mountains of terror to their enemies. Like the first scene of Attack on Titan, that was scary, but it's child's play compared to what sort of hell these guys can create. But obviously, we aren't done yet with the giants because we still have to talk about Elbaf and Loki and his crew and all the giants that will join Luffy after that arc, but put a pin in that and we'll be touching upon that later. And this brings us to the final official representative in the fleet, Orlumbus and his Yonta Maria fleet. This dude is bringing his own grand fleet of 56 ships into the Straw Hat Grand Fleet. For reference, the whole of the Straw Hat Alliance is 5,600 members, and Orlumbus represents 4,300 of that. I mean, I purposely avoid taking math classes, but that sounds like a pretty good number. The math is mathing. Despite their size, we really don't know all that much about this fleet's feats. However, we do know 2 things. 1. Orlumbus holds a bounty of just under 150 million, which makes sense considering the amount of pure physical strength this man has. We often talk about the power Zoro showed by slicing through Pika, but a lot of people forget that Orlumbus was the man who threw him all that distance. Orlumbus also has Admiral's Dignity, a technique which allows him to control others by yelling orders at them. Second, we know just how massive this crew really is. When we say 4,300 people, you might be like, okay, yeah, whatever. But when this fleet is lined up and spans 5 kilometers, you might want to reconsider their sheer might. And that makes up the entire Straw Hat Grand Fleet. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.